everybody. Hi. Welcome to Wisdom on a Wednesday. It's week 6. So I've just made a cup of tea for myself and just having some herbal tea. So we'll start in a couple of seconds. Obviously, a couple of you have asked some questions. Hi, Ian. And I'm going to answer those questions today. And if you want to post any other questions, that's great. So I hope you're all well. I hope you've had an amazing couple of weeks, because I think it was 2 weeks ago I did the last Wisdom on a Wednesday. So my intention was to do it every week, but it hasn't worked out that way. So what I'm doing is labeling them weeks. So if you want to watch them back, they're just labeled in the week order. And I have uploaded 2 of them to YouTube. For some reason I've had a problem with the other ones, so I haven't uploaded them yet. Happy equinox as well. It's spring equinox today, and it was like the most amazing day yesterday at the Chalice Well. It was like the sun was shining, everything was beautiful, didn't have to wear a coat, all the blossoms were out, and I'm not normally in the UK at this time of year. Normally I'm in Arizona, in Sedona, so it was quite nice actually for the first time in a few years to experience spring. Hi Gabriella, thanks for joining. I will start going, because what I think you can do is you can, if you're new to watching any live streams or my live streams, you can watch them back later. So if you join midway and you want to watch it all back later, not just this one or any of the others from the other weeks, you can either watch them back on Facebook, or you can watch, I would love it if you'll watch the ones, or just even watch a little bit of the ones that I've put on YouTube, because that'll help the ratings on YouTube. And also if you can subscribe on YouTube. I mean, constantly my numbers get taken down. I just saw a post this morning about people who write what they call quote conspiracy theory stuff having their YouTube accounts kind of shut down or held down, and I have that experience. They just constantly hold the numbers at the same level. Hi Gabrielle, hi Nicole. For those of you who don't know who I am or what I'm doing, and you've just kind of stumbled on my live stream, or you've stumbled upon my YouTube channel, because more than likely if you're watching me from Facebook, you've liked my page, so you know what I'm doing, because this is on my business page, it's not on my personal page. I had a big awakening 19 years ago, which allowed me to kind of expand my consciousness. And from that, I connected with star beings. It was initially Pleiadian energy. It felt very Pleiadian, although I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. So it was super useful that somebody gave me Bring Us of the Dawn by Barbara Messiniak, which was a great book, and still to this day I love that book. So I started being able to see people's Akashic records. Not that I could even say the word Akashic. I didn't even know what Akashic was. I think I only learnt Akashic about 4 or 5 years ago, and then it probably took me another year to be able to say the word Akashic. So I would be able to see the timelines of people's existence, which is what I still do on Skype. But I also could see people's past lives. I was opening up at a much bigger level to multidimensional things, which I do go into deeper level in workshops and talks and things. And so from that, very quickly, I ended up as the past life regression expert on a TV show in the UK called This Morning, taking celebrities and members of the public back to past lives. And then they made me a show called Have I Been Here Before? And we did 2 series of that. And that was sort of, that whole period covered 2004 to 2007. And then I used to do sound bites on TV, and then I spoke out too much, which you can watch the video on the BBC show The Big Question, about the Illuminati, and that didn't go down too well. And I kind of almost got sent to Coventry, if you know what that means in the UK. So I was kind of sent to Coventry in radio, media, press, any form of sort of mainstream media. I was just like blacked out kind of thing. But I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I spoke my truth. You can watch those videos on YouTube. Somebody edited it to a minute. You can watch me speaking about the Illuminati. You can also see me speaking about the holographic universe in another clip. So all these things are happening because it is an awakening time on the planet. There's lots of things going on. Oh yeah, Ian, I used to be on James Whale and Ian Collins' radio show. Oh, I did used to say Akashic Records. Are you sure? Maybe that might be the Mandala effect, because you've spelt it wrong. That isn't how you spell Akashic. That's the other thing. You know, we could talk about the Mandala effect, which is where we have a certain belief about something and another person has another belief about it, and they're completely different. And the Mandala effect is beliefs about, I think they called it the Mandala effect because it was a belief about when Nelson Mandela died, and different people have different beliefs about when he actually died. So it's conflicting timelines. So in a truth, both of them are true. It's a bit like, I think with the Mandala effect, I've seen people talking about saying, no, I believe this logo for a company looked like this, say in the 1980s, and someone else says, no, it looked like this. And they're both right, but they're both wrong. So it's like the Mandela effect, I think, is about slipping timelines and different realities within different timelines, which can have it getting very, very complex for people, because it really depends on what timeline. Hi, Tamsin. It really depends on what timeline your energy is focused in the Mandala effect and those multi-dimensions. So you could potentially, with the emotional inner work that you do on yourself, you can move timelines. And I think that's what we're seeing now. We're moving dimensions, timelines, reality, and those frequencies can be maybe tweaked or manipulated hugely by external forces. But I think if you work on your internal source, which is your internal stargate within yourself, and you clear out all your trauma and emotional Akashic records linked to reclaiming the soul shards. So I suppose that's the work that I do with people, is reclaiming the fragmented soul shards, releasing the subconscious memories that are held in all timelines of existence, and that changes your vibrational energy field. And understanding life is a bit of a, you know, it's a roller coaster. You know, things are going to happen in our lives that are challenging to us, and it's how you negotiate those, how you're able to remain kind of grounded, but also able to open up to other dimensions as well. You know, my energy is very light, like I'm more connected in the higher chakras, but I am grounded at the same time. I do know in the past some people would say to me, oh, you're not so grounded, but I'm grounded enough to be able to do what I do, to have a connection to all the other dimensions and levels of existence and remain sane, which I think is the main thing, to remain sane in all this, to have an awareness of which dimension is important. And I think I said this in the other videos, the most important dimension, hi Rob, is where your physical body is. You know, where your physical body is important. That's the most important dimension of existence, and it's how we maintain this physical vessel. I think what everybody, I think, is starting to realize now is how you maintain this physical vessel will serve you well. You know, you are not set up to need hip replacements, knee replacements, heart replacement, liver. You know, if we look after this vessel correctly, you shouldn't need to do all those things. You should, in the divine blueprint, just when you've completed the cycle with this journey, whether that is young or old, you should not be dying of old age or your body failing. As in, when I say old age, what I mean is, you know, when people say, oh yeah, he died because he was old, because he was 70 or something. No, I think you were meant to live a lot longer than we have been doing. Not in a body that's, you know, doubled over in agony or in a wheelchair. You know, I think you were meant to live in a very vibrant body till you went, you know what, I have learned everything I need to in this physical body. I can move on. I think there's differing chains of thought, and I could potentially contradict myself a little bit, because I think there are some people who think there is benefit to your body aging and breaking down. and there is a benefit to dying and reincarnating. But then when you move on to the higher levels of existence and you expand the DNA codes, you get out of this die and reincarnate cycle of the matrix, which I think I've talked about in the other videos on Wisdom on a Wednesday. So we can go into that maybe in other weeks in a more complex detail, and also where we can communicate together, which is in workshops and events like that. So I had a question. Some of you have messaged me questions. If you have a question, hi Will. If you have a question, pop it here. If it's answerable today and I see it, I will answer it. So Dion G was asking me how I started speaking light language. So I only became aware of light language in 2011. However, I had been speaking other tongues in my childhood to myself. I would find myself talking to myself, like I'll just give you an example. I would be going, very quiet to myself and just like, so I'd speak like that to myself as a child, but I didn't really speak to other people, and I certainly didn't know other children who spoke light languages. And then in 2011, you know, I'd spent from 2004 extensively, since all the TV time, seeing one-to-one clients in predominantly wherever I was at the time. So if I was in London, I'd see people in London. If I was in Cornwall, I'd see them there. If I was in Sedona, I'd see them there. But I was very linked to having to be in a physical location where people could actually come to see me. And so I kind of thought to myself, you know, I really find that quite limiting. I'd love to be able to do what I do in a much more expanded way. And really in the beginning, before I ended up on TV, I probably was reading emotional Akashic records more when I used to work out of the Aveda store and give talks and workshops in London there on Marylebone High Street, and see private clients as well. And then once the whole TV thing took off, I really focused on the regression, which was different to what I was doing slightly before, although I was obviously always doing regression. So I thought all this to myself, and as with the cosmic laws of the universe, I just put that out there that, you know, I would love a way to be able to do what I do without having to be with people in person. And also I started to get a lot of clients saying, I'd love to come and see you, but I can't get to you. You know, I live abroad. It's really hard for me to get to come to see you. Could you work with me over the phone and then Skype? And I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But actually I thought, oh, maybe I'll give it a go. And as that coincided, I was in Cornwall, and I can remember seeing a lady who also speaks light language called Judy Satori. I was like, wow, that's what I do. I didn't know it was called light language. And so I kind of just got the confidence. And I think within a couple of weeks, I made the first one, which you can see on YouTube, which was Clearing Fear with Light Language. And over the years since then, so that was 2011, hi Amy, with the light language, I have worked extensively on myself. And if you watch back old videos, you'll see my voice change a lot. And I think my voice is very anchored in a different frequency now. And I came off thyroxine, without repeating that story all the time, it's like I got mugged and strangled. I ended up on thyroxine 6 weeks later. That was back in about 98, 99. And then I thought, this is now 3.5 years ago from now, maybe a bit longer because time's so wooey. I came off thyroxine, just took myself off it. And I did that because I wanted to clear all the vocal cords, which is what a lot of you are needing to do. You need to clear the throat chakra, because the throat chakra holds a vibration, and you need to get all those octaves and keys back. Like when I used to do the videos with Andrew Bartzis, the galactic historian, Andrew said to me, yeah, you've walked all the dream times Earth ever created. And when he said that to me, I was like, that's why I need to heal my throat chakra, to extend the repertoire of light language. So light language just came organically and naturally to me. And I think light language is about having confidence in speaking the light language, encoded in within your DNA. When you start to unbraid that DNA, will come forth different light language codes, which are your codes from other timelines, other star systems, other dimensions of existence that are encoded in you. And then you'll begin to emanate those forth. Personally speaking, I have worked with clients, whether it's in person or on Skype, and I sing light language to you, as you know, quite a lot in the sessions to help clear things and also activate you. But in no way do I ever teach light language. And I see people teaching light language. To me, that's not my way. I don't think you can teach something like that. I think you can assist people to remove any blockages to them naturally, authentically, emanating sound frequencies naturally from themselves. But trying to teach people, like, you need to go, oh, like, say this phrase. I have a huge, like, I don't feel that's right. Something feels wrong to me about that. Feels very off. It feels contrived. It doesn't feel authentic and natural. And I think light language has to come from you naturally. I also don't believe that we should be translating light language into the third dimensional language which I'm speaking now, because this is in itself a corrupted language, and the whole point of light language is to rise beyond the ego mind and the corruption. So why would you then try to translate light language into a spoken word of language which is already corrupted, when the whole point of light language is to go beyond the mind, the ego mind, and into the vibration of the soul of the person, and use the sound vibration of the light language codes to bring a healing in that way. And I know how powerful sound and frequency are. You know, some of you know I love aerial yoga, but I got a bit of an injury from my AC cuff and my rotator cuff probably 8 weeks ago. And when I went to see Lorene McKenna singing, this beautiful auburn-haired lady, if you're not aware of her music, please look her up, Lorene McKenna. I got a healing to my shoulder. You know, I sat down with my mum, who, you know me speak about saying she's got dementia, so I have to hold her hand. And I was like, oh, my arm hurts from holding her hand so much, you know, because she's pulling me along. And we sat down at the concert, and from the minute Lorena opened her mouth and the first sound emanated forth, I felt my crown chakra go shoo, blew open. And by the time the concert ended, my shoulder had totally realigned itself into the socket. I was like, great, thank you. You know, and Lorena had the most pure sound emanating from her voice. It was like her voice was better the older she's got than when I listened to some of her recordings from maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I think she knows what she's doing, but she doesn't consciously say it. She's just a musician singing, but I think she has a very powerful ancient frequency. And when you listen to her speak and sing, it's like it's activating other timeline memories. So I highly recommend listening to her. I think she's amazing. And again, synchronicity. So synchronicity guided me to go to that concert. And again, you know, synchronicity can make things really easy for you. Gave me a reduced price ticket when we got there. They said, oh, because you bought it on this strange website. I didn't even know if I'd get the ticket. I thought it might not even, you know, might be just nobody there when we went to collect it at this strange venue in Manchester. But we got upgraded to the best seats. So everything was divine, everything was meant to be. And I think my mum probably experienced a healing as well, listening to those sound frequencies. So sound, whether you call it toning, I know in workshops we often do the vibrational sounds of the chakras and we sing those. And going back to light language, a lot of you have started to speak light language since the inner journey work we've been doing. You're like, oh, all of a sudden I speak light language now. And it's encoding the DNA to speaking that light language. Now, there are other people who speak light language and I'm literally like, oh my God, I can't stand it. Like, I put my fingers in my ears, like I cannot stand whatever they're speaking. It doesn't resonate with me. So there are a lot of light languages on the planet. And if you don't resonate with them, please don't listen to them, because they're not for you. You know, when you listen to light language, just close your eyes, just breathe and let the sound come through you. And yes, it can tense you up if it's releasing something, but if it feels like horrific to you, then really I wouldn't listen to that. That language is not for you. So it's like everything with all of this, it's so about trusting our intuition and not giving our power away, because everything about is empowering you back to yourself. And some of you in the last few weeks, when I spoke about, we've been releasing really, really ancient entities from the Stargate portals within ourselves, aligning with the Earth grid portals. And that's linked to how much inner work you've done, which is phenomenal inner work that you've been doing on yourselves. And you can, you know, you are actually seeing these entities yourself. You are having a dialogue with them. You are finding out stories about them. So these are really ancient ones being released from your ancestral lineages, and also from the Earth's lineage, which is really amazing, powerful stuff that's going on. So all the ley lines and the stargates are aligning for all that to happen. So talking about aligning stargates and portals, I've had to write this down because I'll forget otherwise. So I did post about awakening DNA codes when you link with your own personal stargate portal and the Earth portal. And one of the most important places for me that I feel drawn back to, although we call it the Cathar region in France, I think there's timelines running there before even the Cathar region. When I say the Cathar region, the Cathar timeline started running. I think that landscape, the stargates, the portals there are very powerful to other beings in other dimensions and other star systems as well. So I've actually bought a flight to Béziers. I go to Béziers. You can fly to Carcassonne, you can fly to somewhere else, but I fly to Béziers. I'm going on the 24th of April, okay, and I'm returning on the 29th of April. So my thought is to run a workshop. I was going to do one that was residential. Let me know if you want to join me. I can rent a place. Other than that, find your own accommodation. And my theory is to take you to like Montségur, Carcassonne, Rennes-le-Château, Rennes-le-Ban, probably Carcassonne, because it's a couple of hours away from the other places. And I go there on the way from the airport. So we'll maybe have to talk about the logistics of that. But if you want to join me, I was thinking maybe the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is the 26th, the 27th, 28th, one or two of those days we could all meet up and go to these places and do some light language, and I will host a workshop with you in those and take you to those locations and take you to some places you might not find on your own. And also the group energy of me singing light language, you singing, toning or whatever, opens dimensions and portals within yourself and outside of yourself. So tune in if you feel like that's something you want to do, is join me in the Cathar region. You probably will need to be able to drive and get yourself to around Rennes-le-Château area. You can fly from Béziers. So message me if you're interested in that, and we can all meet up in the south of France. So that would be fun, and do some emotional inner journey work, and we can bathe in the thermal spa waters in Rennes-le-Ban. And then there's another place called Alet-le-Ban, which is beautiful as well, but Rennes-le-Ban is where the thermal waters are. So, and there's some other magical places to go. And I did talk about this a little bit in the other Wisdom on a Wednesday, on the week 5 one, I think. So, okay, let's look at the other question, which I think is a question I have experienced, I think you experience, I think we all have this going on, because I think if you're watching my stuff, you're probably on the empathic spectrum. I doubt very much you're on the psychic vampire spectrum. So Lisa Maria asked, Okay, why do people everywhere want to tell me their problems, worries and fears? And she feels like she's tired and she's hiding from people because they're constantly offloading their stuff on her. I think there's a huge difference between, like you say, people offloading their stuff. So you've got random strangers who you just might be on the bus or you just pitch up somewhere and you don't know this person. It's not like they're an acquaintance or something, but they just feel the need to offload their stuff on you or tell you everything. This has been my whole life. You can smile, you don't have to be engaged. It's your free will whether you feel intuitively like you were meant to meet that person and you're meant to hold space for that. Sometimes that's the truth. We're always working, whether people are paying us or not paying us. We are always working. You know, you can't avoid it. And sometimes it feels better to, if you have the time, to hold a space just for that and then release it energetically. But I think where the sticky line is, and this is certainly a line I found probably to be more challenging than random strangers, and it's also the energy we hold. You know, it's a frequency people find very attractive. It's not about physical attraction, like physically beautiful. It's an energy. It's an energy you hold. It's like the other day, a guy followed me from the tube in London, and I was halfway down the street in Richmond, and he produced a flower out of the back of my head saying, you know, he'd seen me coming off the tube, but I think he saw me on the tube. I think it was the energy. It's an energy. It's something they're attracted to because it reminds them of home. It reminds them of who they are. So they're very attracted to us. They don't know why that is, but they're like, nee. And then I think the thing that I think what Lisa's talking about, and you can put, you know, if you agree or disagree, pop it in the comments. I think the difference between a random stranger coming up to you, and I think where the line is between friends and acquaintances. And I think often many of us don't really know where that line of friends and acquaintances is. But I think what Lisa's talking about is where we people who, you know, maybe they're not quite a friend or maybe they are a friend, but we just feel drained. And it's like, if you try to talk to them, and I can think in my mind of a few people I know who do this, if you talk to them, and if it's something that benefits them, they'll listen. If it's something that doesn't benefit them, you haven't even got to the end of your sentence, they're already twisting it back to themselves, which is slightly narcissistic. And they cut in so you can't actually say what you're going to say a lot. And then they tell you their problems and worries, and then you know, in a natural organic conversation, it's a bit like tennis ball. You speak, I speak, you speak, I speak, and it flows beautifully in like a figure of eight, you know, conversation, and it feels uplifting and fulfilling, like we're sharing. And of course, in friendships, our friends will go through a tricky time where they will need a little bit more support than the friendship is normally based on, you know, and then maybe you go through a tricky time and then they support you, and that's a loving, balanced friendship. But these people who come into your reality, who constantly offload their stories onto you, but don't give anything, they just, you know, seek you out to offload their stories on. I think that's what Lisa's talking about. And if you're listening, Lisa, just post if what I'm saying is correct for you. Yeah, you feel overwhelmed, you feel burdened with their crap, you feel icky, you feel sick, you feel exhausted, or you feel spun out by being around them. And I think we have to try to eventually discern, because that's about loving ourselves, to just kind of avoid them, you know, and eventually they'll maybe get the lesson, because I really don't think if you tell them straight to their face you're going to get anywhere. They're just going to gaslight you and triangulate you, or create flying monkeys, if you know what they are. So I think that's it. It's understanding it's an energy thing. If you can be in your heart, sometimes it feels really beautiful that you held space for some complete stranger or someone who is an acquaintance. It felt like the right thing to do, you know. I can think of stories from acquaintances where I've bumped into them in places where I didn't expect them to be, and they're really having a bad day, and it's sort of almost on the edge of maybe not wanting to be here anymore. And so, you know, I changed my plans on what I was doing to just be present with them in that moment, and, you know, that changed their life. And so those kinds of experiences and things, I think, are beautiful experiences, and it's part of our work that we do by just being on the planet and why we're here. But I think when you feel like it's people who constantly contact you to just offload on you, and also they're not people who want to do the inner journey work, they just want to offload. You know, I've people I'm very aware of. As I say this, I can think of them. You know, you book a session with me, it's very clear I'm here to assist you. You're prepared to go inside yourself. With these people, the same advice I might give to them, they just throw it back in my face. Oh, no, 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 no. You know, like, I'm like, okay then. So, you know, what's the point? I'm not going to hold space for you constantly to moan about your life, but not look inward. You know, that's a very different energy. If every time I see you, I feel exhausted and spun out, and I feel icky. And it's not that you've been purposely rude to me or anything. It's just your energy is like a psychic vampire. You're just exhausting and draining to be around. And I can see into their Akashic records. I can often see satanic ritual abuse in their background with those kinds of people, or really dark interdimensional entities. And of course, they're not aware of what's in their energy field. And even if you did try to broach them, they would sort of bat you away. And I would say that most of them are sort of like narcissistic, borderline, probably verging on schizophrenic, but probably most of them are undiagnosed and they've got away with it. Yeah, they've got some kind of personality disorder going on that is flying under the radar, I would say. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any other questions, post them below. Hi Claire, hi Ian. Let's just see, if you've got a question, post it below. So it is the spring equinox today, so it feels like everything is beginning to lift and rise again, and energetically on the planet now we've got whole, dare I even mention it, begins with a B, Brexit energy thing. I did make a video on that a couple of years ago. I feel like everything I said in that video seems to be true. It's the illusion of choice. It's going to play itself out. We don't necessarily need to give it too much of our energy. In some ways, whoever was going to be the Prime Minister at this time, I think was going to have a tough time, because, you know, I look at that lady, and she's not in great health and well-being. I mean, look, she, you know, under her eyes you can see all this cortisol build-up, which is stress hormone. That's why she has like little suitcases under her eyes. You know, whoever she is, whatever entities are operating through her, you've got to think, who would want to be Prime Minister of a country, you know, where you're going to be vilified for, there's going to be people who, there's going to it's going to be people who love and hate you no matter what you say. So who would want that kind of backlash, being attacked all the time? I certainly wouldn't. Nicole is saying she asked about theta healing. For me personally, no. I've worked with a lot of people who have been involved in that in a way that it drained them. They were exhausted. Again, it's one of those other therapies where you get to be a practitioner, so therefore you can make money out of being a practitioner, but in no way do those people have to do any inner work on themselves in the beginning. They're like cookie cutter therapies. Look at the lady who set it up. I think she's not looking in the greatest health and well-being herself. I think it attracts certain beings from certain dimensions, and I think other beings such as yourselves maybe get involved in that energy and it maybe isn't the right energy for you, and you can't figure it out, and you paid a lot of money to become a therapist of this therapy. And I have a huge sort of red flag around any therapies. I'm not just picking on that particular one, but I think a lot of therapies allow you to become a therapist, and it's not organic, it's not natural. If it was organic and natural, you would have done enough emotional inner journey work in yourself to naturally find your own innate inner skills and gifts, which will emanate forth naturally from you. I could have set up Soul Freedom Therapy to teach therapists over the last 19 years, and I never chose to do that because I felt it was not in integrity, and I felt I don't want to teach somebody how to be me, because I can't teach you how to be me. I can teach you how to be the best version of you, and I can assist you to remove any emotional blockages in your way, and then whatever gifts come forth from you from removing those blockages, that's what you should be sharing with the world. Yeah, I don't really vibe with theta healing, and I really wouldn't go personally. I wouldn't go to a therapist who did that, and if I found out they did that therapy, I would avoid them. But that's just my personal opinion, based on my personal opinion. You know, take of it what you will. You don't have to agree with me. You might find it's beneficial for you. For me personally, energetically, no. And when I see the videos of the lady who set it up, that's something else I wouldn't want. I don't want the responsibility of hundreds of practitioners, because I'm more committed to evolving my own soul. I'm not committed to earning loads of money or having power or control or authority over a group of other people. My whole intention is to empower people back to themselves. So therefore, as I've always said, I should constantly find myself out of a job, and new people come along who need help, and eventually people might not need that. You know, some of you are really saying now you've cleared so much, you feel so much more empowered to yourself, and you know, you don't need to do sessions with me anymore. And a lot of the people, you know, maybe I worked with them 5 or 6 years ago or 8 years ago, and they've been fine on their own, and then all of a sudden something happens and they need to do some sessions or inner work. But all that work only works if I keep working on myself and keep my own vibration up and high, even in the face of tremendous adversity of, as you know, me talk about having a mum with dementia and a dad who's 92 who's a tricky customer as well. So I'm very aware of self-care at this point in my life, more than ever. And having had at one point in my life, you know, 1,000 emails a day when I used to be on TV, I'm aware that you can get overwhelmed, especially when you're doing a lot of one-to-one work. So your own self-maintenance has to be your priority. And I see a lot of you, you know, worrying about how am I going to pay the bills and do this self-maintenance. But really, honestly, if you focus on the self-maintenance of yourself, emotionally, mentally, physically, put that as your priority, everything else will align itself. Hold on, Nicole's saying yes, she agrees. I only did activation by clearing in the inner work. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, I've pressed a button and I don't know if you've all disappeared. How does the moon affect our moods, and is it worse for people? Yeah, I mean, the moon, if you think about it, that's why they call it lunar tick asylum, lunatic. So our bodies are predominantly made of water, so everything in our body is water. So when the moon changes, the tides in the sea, you know, the tide is affected by the moon. So everything is about the tide of the moon, so it ebbs and flows. So you can wake up feeling different 3 days before a full moon, 3 days after a full moon. I used to have to put my phone on silent because I had some clients who, maybe when I was more newer to this, I hadn't realised people's mental states, and because I'd been on television, I'd attracted everyone and everything. There was not really a filter. It was like if you watch TV and you watch This Morning, you will have seen me and you may be attracted to what I do. And I didn't have enough discernment in myself in the beginning to sort of be very clear with my own boundaries, and that had been a journey. So I would attract people who were, you know, on the psychotic disorder spectrum, and of course around a full moon they would go unhinged a bit and call me intensely in the middle of the night. So I used to put my phone on silent 3 days before a full moon and 3 days after, just to preempt this experience. And I learnt from that. And you know, they're not consciously to blame because they're not aware of themselves enough to know what's happening to them. But most of them had a lot of emotional trauma they'd never processed, they'd disassociated from. And therefore they're affected by the moon a lot more. You know, the moon will affect you if you don't control your own emotions. And everybody is affected a little bit, but it's when you go completely unhinged. And I know that there are more admissions to accident and emergency in hospitals when there's a full moon. Same, nightclubs put more bouncers on the door when there's a full moon. Same with the police, there's more arrests when there's a full moon of people who are mentally unstable. You know, they have a lot of maybe multi-generational ancestral trauma that they've never processed. And so they're super affected by the moon. And we can go into that on a deeper level another time maybe. Hold on. Oh, hi Camilla, hi everybody. So I'm just going to check the time 1 second, because I can talk and days can have gone by. Hold on a second. Oh yeah, we're coming up for just under an hour, I think, because I started at 11:11. So just to reiterate of what we've talked about today. So we've talked about light language, we've talked about boundaries and feeling drained by people. The next level is doing the emotional inner journey work on yourself, you know, whether that's in your own time or with me or watching YouTube stuff. There's a lot of YouTube stuff out there. There's a lot being said about what's going on the planet at this time, about the moon. We talked about the moon, we talked about have we been to the moon, that's a whole other story. Like while I was in Sedona the last time, this is a great story, you'll like this story. I was at a Barbara Masiniak event, and there was, you know, a fair few people there, because this was like, you'd had to have been to other events to get to this event. So this was like people who were very familiar with Barbara Masiniak's work. And I wasn't going to go again because a couple of years ago I'd gone and she wasn't as open to me then. Anyway, this year she really loved me and liked me, and also because she was at a point in her life where she was talking about all the dark things on the planet, like the royal family, the paedophiles. She was wanting to talk about all that, and with me being English, I think she was interested in my perspective on that. And also, bizarrely, my perspective when I said, you know, I've been doing emotional inner journey work with people for 19 years. The other people in the audience said, oh, normally she tells people to sit down when they're talking about that, but she was super open to it. So there was this other couple who I bumped into in a restaurant who were also at the Barbara Masiniak event, and they were a little bit older couple. And the husband said to me, oh, what did you think about the moon? What do you think about the moon landings? And I said, well, personally speaking, I don't think we've ever been to the moon in those polystyrene rockets. I think we may have been to the moon, but we go interdimensionally to the moon. I don't know necessarily whether the moon is that big cardboard cutout in the sky or whatever it is, although we, you know, I've just talked about being emotionally affected by the moon. So it's sort of slight contradiction. But I said, I don't think we've been to the moon. And so I said, why? What do you think, to this guy? And he said, well, I can only tell it you from my perspective. And I said, and what's your perspective? And he said, well, I was one of the engineers in the 1969 Apollo 11 moon landing. I was like, right, okay. And so he told me that he detached the attachment to the rocket, whatever it is. He sat in a control center, and that's what he did, and his name was Dan, and I can't remember his surname, but he gave me his business card, and they were a delightful older couple. But the minute I sat down, it was so funny because when I sat down with him for dinner, I looked at him and I thought he looks really good for his age, like really tight skin, really good. And I thought to myself, I think he's linked to NASA. And lo and behold, there he tells me he was an engineer in the Apollo 11 moon landing. And another time when I'd been in Sedona, I was minding my own business in this restaurant, and a couple came in. And I saw the woman, she had long blonde hair, and I noticed her and she looked at me, and I thought she registered like looking at me. Not that she knew me, she just registered looking at me. And there was a very tall, attractive man with her, and I looked at him and he sort of looked a little bit out of place for Sedona. And I was like, And then the next thing, I'd realised I'd been waiting ages for my takeaway. So I went to reception. I said, I think I've been waiting an hour. I think I've been here a really long time. And then this guy, the really tall guy, came over and he went, are you Andrea Fowkes? And I went, I am. And I got talking to him, and he turned out to be an astronaut with NASA. And really strange stuff. But these kinds of stories happen to me all the time. And you know, he was saying, he was like, I like your work. I was like, okay, thanks. How do you know my stuff? And he'd been doing because I give talks and workshops in Sedona sometimes at the Creative Life Centre, but he'd been doing an event at the Creative Life Centre the day before on remote viewing. You know, NASA, sorry, someone was trying to call me then because I'm doing this on my phone. Anyway, I did have a little powwow with him a few days later and tried to figure him out and what he was up to. And yeah, let's just say it was very interesting. And yeah, many intrigues on the planet. And so yeah, so in Sedona there is a military base, I think a hidden one in Sedona that people have told me about as well. And obviously it's a powerful Stargate portal on the planet. So there's, you know, all kinds of people walking around the planet up to all kinds of things, you know. So I think you just have to stay in your truth. Don't go into fear. You know, fear is a lower frequency. Don't go into paranoia either. Stay in your truth, stay in your heart. We can process all this stuff. Listen, I've been knocking about 19 years consciously doing this stuff now, and I've fared quite well. I've had all kinds of mystical meetings and experiences with all kinds of people. It's like Ian was posting, because I was listening to Miles Johnson or interviewing somebody who I'm not that fond of the person who it is, but the interview was particularly very good, and I think I did post it the other day on Facebook. And they were talking about the Montauk project, and of course I've been to Montauk because when I was in my early 20s I used to spend a lot of time sort of the end of the summer sort of in the Hamptons in Long Island in New York, in Southampton predominantly. And I can remember one time driving to Montauk, not knowing anything about Montauk, and I got there and I'm like, this is the weirdest, freakiest seaside kind of seaside-esque town with a really weird vibe, sort of near New York and in Long Island. And I was like, weird stuff goes on there. And that was even before I had my awakening. I was like, weird stuff is going on here. I can feel it. You know, and then obviously I've read about the Montauk projects. If you haven't read about the Montauk projects, Google Montauk project and you can read about what was going on there. And trust me, from the energies there was very strange. Yeah, was not too keen of that. So did meeting the NASA guys change? No. Okay, so the older man, he was very magnanimous. I think that's the word, isn't it? Magnanimous. What he said, I said, so do you think we've been to the moon? And he said, well, all I know is I sat in this control tower in 1969, you know, when they went to the moon, and this is what I did. And I watched it on a monitor, and this is what I did. So I think obviously for him to be at a Pleiadian conference, he's open to interdimensional star beings, because why would you be at a Pleiadian conference? So over the years, what he probably knew in 1969 is probably very different to what he knows now. But the impression I got about the older gentleman was yeah, he did look human. Like, he was just about pulling it off to look human, but he looked amazing for his age, you know, really tight skin. He looked good. A bit like, which is another experience I had in Sedona with some being linked to, you know, the channelings of Bashar. I mean, that's a whole other, that's a whole other story for another day. So there's loads of interesting, you know, and that's when I had my experience with Bashar, not Darrell channeling Bashar, but Bashar, like from the Sasani community, yeah, at the back of Bell Rock. So that's a story for another day. So, but the younger guy, I felt like I caught him out on a few lies, and there's a whole other bigger story to that story as well, which we haven't really got time for today. I felt like they were checking me out for some reason. I don't know why. He said he invented things that the astronauts take to the moon, and he'd been working with some beings that he worked with since a child that were interdimensional beings, and that's what he was helping NASA with, to take these things to the moon. And I said, yeah, but that depends if you've really been to the moon in a rocket, and I don't think you go in a rocket. I think you can go to the moon. I don't think you go in that rocket that they show you on the TV. I think that's just for show. That's just to make you think that's how they do it. I don't think that's how they do it. And I do think you can. The moon is something. It's some Stargate interdimensional portal. So obviously got some significance. And yeah, I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to go and live on the moon. You know, where they do these recruitment things where you could go and live on the moon. I would avoid that. I don't think that's a positive thing. I don't think I would be signing up for that. But yeah, I think there's something going on. But what they want us when they watch it on TV, what they want you to believe, I don't think is the absolute truth. And I've seen photos from those moon landings about shadows, and I've been to conferences where they've talked about it in-depth information. Yeah, so there's a big cover-up from my perspective. There's a cover-up about what's really going on. You could all meditate on it, ask your higher self to show you the truth about the moon, you know, and then what you could do was compare your notes of what you collectively meditated on, to be shown the truth in your own soul about that, if it's something that you really want to know more about. So yeah, it did change my opinion a little bit. And you know, when I'm in Sedona, I'm always aware there's a lot of, I seem to come across a lot of events that are NASA-based events in Sedona that I see, but like other people say they don't necessarily see them. But I'm aware that they're there. So yeah, yeah, there's a lot more to it, I think. And some things I don't like to talk about necessarily in a video environment. I think we talk about those in person at workshops. So I hope that answers the question a little bit and maybe planted a few seeds for thought. And you know, if you want to ask me questions for other topics of the weeks for Wisdom on a Wednesday, obviously, as you know, if you're familiar with me and my work, I do past life regression, inner child healing, ancestral timeline healing, spirit releasement, sing light languages, and read the emotional Akashic records of the timelines of your soul to release the traumas and miasms. And I also facilitate in one-to-one sessions between life experiences, so meeting your higher self, your soul star families, whatever's appropriate for your soul, what is right for you and where you're at and where your vibration is. So it's all about what's the most important thing for you personally. And healing ourselves, you know, that's the thing, to keep our bodies in great health and vibration and well-being, and that any lumps or bumps we can override by managing this vehicle, which is our body, our temple. You know, I think that's the thing, things started to go a bit iffy when we started creating temples outside of ourselves, when the inner temple is the most important one to worship, the inner temple, and how we treat this. And it's challenging to keep it in tip-top shape, but you have to treat it a bit like a car, and we have to look after it, and we have to rest it, and we have to do what we feel is appropriate without allowing guilt or shame to get in our way. But at the same time, like I said earlier, you know, you sometimes have commitments to loved ones and family that, you know, mean you do have to overextend yourself a little bit, because it's just the nature of the challenges on planet Earth at this point in time, and how the matrix has been set up to almost be like a distraction, but we have to maintain ourselves within that. So I hope that's helpful for today. So many topics you can talk on though, but much love for listening. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to say before I sign off and disappear? So much love, many blessings. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, go to my website, which is andreafaux.com. And yeah, think about joining me in France if that's something that piques your interest in the energies of the Cathar region and the stargates there and clearing things. I also should mention that my surname goes back to King Baldwin II, which is my dad's lineage, which is back to those ancient timelines, and it also comes from Agen, bizarrely I can't speak French, but Agen, which is Folk, which was part of that lineage as well, so it goes back ancestrally to France as well. So much love, many blessings. Thank you all for watching, and Elaine, you've just arrived, so if you go back to the beginning, and Thea, thank you for watching as well. If you go back to the beginning, when I end this, you can watch the whole thing back, because we're just ending now, but you haven't missed much, because you can go right back to the beginning when I stopped filming this, and you can watch it either on Facebook Live or you can watch it on YouTube. Anjou, that's right, Ian, that's it. So much love for today, and have a beautiful week and a beautiful spring equinox. And to end the session now, because we talked about light language, I'll just do a little light language transmission. That's right, Ian. He's posting King Folk of Jerusalem, yeah. So just bring in these energies that are perfect for you, closing your eyes, and I'll just let you stay with the light language at the end. So just bringing in a vibration that's correct for our whole soul group who've watched this video and going to watch it later. So much love, closing your eyes, just being in your heart. And so Makuya, Arantaka Makuya, Inara Makuya, Itamakayana, Imukuya, Uruhuya, Makiana, Kieta Makuruta Kamakuya, I Anana Imukuya, Itara Makuya, Ichamakiana Kurumukuya, Kita Makuya. Thank you. Much love. Just open your eyes in your own time and just take a deep breath and just let those light language codes work with you today, and whatever they unbraid within you energetically. So much love, many blessings. Bye for now. Bye.